This episode of Faces of Grand Prairie podcast is brought to you today with the help of these wonderful local business sponsors. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any of the upcoming great interviews. My Generosity Estate Sales has been providing estate liquidation services in Grand Prairie since 2015. They are a trusted member of the Grand Prairie community and a proud affiliate of the Arlington Board of Realtors. Generosity Estate Sales specializes in helping adult children through the emotionally difficult process of liquidating a loved one's estate and helping seniors downsize for their next phase of life. To find out more about their services or follow their upcoming sales, go to mygenerosityestatesales.com. Coffee News is a weekly publication delivered to restaurants, coffee shops, hotels, and anywhere people go to have a bite to eat or wait for service. Everything in Coffee News is fun and entertaining. It is a breath of fresh air for millions of readers tired of hearing only bad news. At Coffee News of Grand Prairie, their mission is to help small and medium-sized local businesses grow with affordable, exclusive advertising. This means that your ad is being viewed every day. With exposure 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, your ad reminds current clients and customers to return to your business for products or services while constantly creating interest for potential new clients or customers. Go to coffeenewsgp.com to learn more. Mansfield Driving Academy is Mansfield's oldest driving school, serving the Grand Prairie, Mansfield, Arlington, and Kennedale areas since 2009. Their state-approved curriculum has been designed for maximum learning and designed to meet students where they are at. They offer both online and in-person classes for the convenience of their students and provide in-car lessons for both learning options. They are a DPS road test site and offer in-person testing options so you don't have to wait in line at the DMV. To find out more about their course packages, visit their website at mansfield-drive.com. Jenna Pecor is a realtor with Bancroft Realty and a proud member of the Arlington Board of Realtors. She's been helping people with their real estate goals in Grand Prairie for over 10 years, with a specialty in liquidating the estates of seniors. In today's real estate market, you need an agent with negotiation skills and experience with current market trends who'll be able to confidently guide you through your transaction. Jenna is that realtor who can make it happen for you one step at a time. Call Jenna at 214-558-4410 for a free consultation if you're thinking about buying or selling a home. And now, on to our episode. Welcome to the Faces of Grand Prairie, Coach Bartel.
It's good to be here.
I'm so glad we can make it finally.
Right? Isn't that the truth?
It took a couple of reschedules.
Yeah.
But tell everybody who you are and why you're here.
Well, my name is Gary Bartell. I was born and raised in Grand Prairie, and with elementary school, middle school, and high school at Grand Prairie High School. And I was very active in athletics. Played every sport that I could. I wasn't good at a lot of them, but I tried all of them. And left in 1971, graduated from Grand Prairie High. I went off to college at Texas Tech University, where I got a football scholarship and got to play football for the Red Raiders.
Guns up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then when I finished playing, about my junior year, when I decided that I was supposed to be a coach. And I wanted to go into coaching. And so I stayed at Texas Tech after I finished playing and I finished my degree. I stayed as a graduate assistant coach. And that's how I started in coaching. And I coached college football for 28 years. And then had an opportunity to come to Grand Prairie High School, come back. They say I think I'm the only graduate of Grand Prairie High School that ever came back to be the head football coach.
Really?
Yeah, that's a little bit of history.
There you go. That's awesome.
So I stayed, and I came back home. So I tell everybody, well, I left for about 30 years and finally wised up and came back home.
Right.
And so I've been here ever since.
And you, there's a little bit of history with my family and you.
Yes.
Well, my father.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you're here because I want to talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
So you and my dad played football together.
That's right.
Back in the day.
Yep.
So when did you, well, kind of going back a little bit, were you born in Grand Prairie or did your family come here later?
I was actually born here in Florence Nightingale Hospital in Dallas. I was born in 1953. My parents came to Grand Prairie in 1950 because my dad was an aeronautical engineer, and he got a chance to come and work for Chance Vaught. You know, Chance Vaught, of course, that was probably one of the biggest employers in this area. I think it was General Motors and the Grand Prairie School District and Chance Vaught. Those were the three largest employers in this area.
Oh, it made a huge difference in the population of our city for sure.
So he got that job and they moved here in 1950 and he started to work. My mom was an RN, but she had quit working to start a family. And so they moved here in 1950. In 1951, my older brother was born. So they accomplished their goal. And then 2 years after that, I was born in 53. And 2 years after that, my sister Janice was born. And then a year after that, my little brother Dale was born. I always kidded Dale. I said, you weren't planned.
He was the surprise.
Yeah, you were surprised. But we lived over on the east side of town. I always called it the streets of trees. You know, Cottonwood. We lived on Cottonwood Street. And lived there for just 5 years. And I think when I was about 6 years old, we moved to our new house, which was right down the block from Grand Prairie High School. I mean, I could walk to school. You would go down High School Drive, heading east toward Turner Park. And the first right was northeast 4th Street. You go up that hill, our house was the first house on the right.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I didn't have, I could get to Grand Prairie High School real fast. And I spent a lot of time up there.
Oh, yeah. Did you go to Lee Elementary also?
No.
No?
I went to Adams.
You went to Adams was an elementary school.
No, I went to, Austin.
Austin
Elementary. Went to Austin Elementary. And they built Adams when I was about the 4th or 5th grade. Because my brother was old enough to go to Adams. And my brother was really sharp. But I call him a nerd. He didn't play any athletics, but he was brilliant. And I'll never forget the story when they opened Adams. He wanted to be the first student to walk through the doors of Adams. So he had my mom take us early that morning, the first day of school, so he could be the first one. Because the rest of us went to Austin Elementary. So, but he wanted to be there first, so she dropped him off. I mean, it was like 7 o'clock in the morning, but he was there, and he said that he was the first one through the doors. I don't have any verification of that, but that was his goal. I'll never forget that. And the record, she took the rest of us to Austin to the elementary school. I think that might have been about 65, 66. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but I'll never forget that. And he always claimed fame to this day. I was the first student to walk through the doors at Adams Junior High.
He needs to be on the podcast.
Sure.
And I make that the title of the video.
I was the first one. That's exactly right. But anyway, we moved there. And I lived in that house. Of course, they lived there for years and years, all through my high school days and even after that.
Now, did you play any Little League sports?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I played baseball. Back then, they didn't have, youth football leagues or anything like that. We just had pretty much baseball and maybe some basketball.
I'm doing a newsletter, a new newsletter, and one of the things I wrote about was going through the old newspapers. I love going through old newspapers.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a paragraph about Little League sports, but you're right, it was mostly baseball,
right.
But they named them after all the businesses in town.
That's right.
So it was like Prairie Dog Drive-In, the Prairie Dogs, that's what it was called.
the Ace Hardware was just, or it was a hardware store, not Ace, but that's what they named the teams.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah,
I think that was so cool. So you did baseball and stuff.
It was really a strange deal. I played baseball when I was 9, 10, and 11. I played for First Baptist Church. They had a church league, and we played teams over in Irving and Arlington around there. But it was the First Baptist Church league, and I didn't play in the boys' baseball.
Oh,
I played those first 3 years for First Baptist, and then my dad, one of his buddies at work, named Sam Mayo, coached the Elks team, the Elks Lodge. And because he worked with me, he asked my dad if he would be an assistant coach. And since he coached for the Elks, I could play for the Elks. The only problem was that all the kids on the Elks team were from the south side of town.
Oh.
So I played with guys from the south side of town, and all the guys from the north side of town that played for Grand Prairie Hardware, or I think there was the Cleaners. There were some other teams. Yep. They played on the other team. So everybody asked, how you end up over here? And so I ended up because my dad was an assistant coach. They let me play for him because he was an assistant coach.
Now, were you a ringer?
I think so. I look back at it and I said, we had three in that league. We had three really good pitchers. One was Tommy Sneed, and one was Charles Flood. I remember Sneed played for Perkins Brothers Lumber, and Flood played for Prairie Dog, and I played for them. But we were probably the three top pitchers.
So did they how did they decide who played each other? Was it a league?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. They had a league, and we played each other twice a year. I guess we played about 14 games.
Now, when they sponsored, did y'all have to pay anything to play? Or did they sponsor everything that y'all needed?
I think they sponsored everything.
See, that's the cool part that I like, because Little League and all that stuff has gotten so expensive for families. Yeah. But they used to just provide all the stuff that y'all would need back then.
Well, we could bring, of course, our own bats and gloves, and we just had old wooden bats.
Where'd y'all play?
We played at Cottonwood Park.
Cottonwood?
Yeah, that's where all the Little League, and they called the Pee Wee League or the T-shirt league. They had T-shirts.
Yes.
But the kids pitched, and it was real baseball. And then Little League, and I never had a chance to play in the Pee Wee League. But the funny thing was my birthday is in September. And so I was 12 years old. I was 12 years old playing Little League, and all my classmates are playing in the other league, the junior league.
Were you the youngest or the oldest?
I was the oldest.
You were the oldest.
So I had to take a birth certificate every place I went. My mom carried it in her purse.
Because they thought, this kid's too big to be in
this guy's too old. But I had, it was a great experience. I got to know a lot of guys from the other side of town.
That's awesome.
Guys that went to, that were going to go to Lee.
Right.
In Jefferson. Although Jefferson was on the same side of Main Street.
Yeah.
Or Jefferson, So, because, Grand Prairie just exploded and grew south.
Yes.
All the growth was that way, but it was fun to
when you say on the south side, what do you mean? Because you said there's kids that played on the south side. How far south are we talking?
It was railroad tracks, basically,
That was the south side.
Yeah, main Jefferson Street.
Wow.
Main Street, they were all those guys went to the league.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the biggest junior high. It had the most, kids. Adams was the new kid on the block.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of there was a lot of growth there. A new subdivision there called International Estates.
Yes,
that's where a lot of people were living and moving there. And
I lived off Canadian for a while.
Yeah,
and I love that area.
Yeah, yeah. But that's where the Adams kids were, and of course the Jefferson kids were over on the east side, over closer to LTV and over that way.
So when you got into middle school, did they have athletic teams in middle school?
Yes.
So what kind of sports did they have?
They had football and basketball and track.
And did you do all of them?
I did them all. I wasn't real good at all of them, but I was pretty good at all of them. So the coach let me play.
Is that where you decided football was where you wanted to stay, or did you play sports throughout the whole time?
Yeah, I played football and basketball and track. And in the summertime, I played baseball. They had the junior league and the senior league and the American Legion. So I played baseball. And sometimes I did not play baseball in high school until my senior year.
Really?
Yeah. And because I was always running track.
Oh.
And we couldn't do it. But finally, my senior year, the baseball coach and the track coach got together. And said, we can work out a practice schedule where he can go practice baseball right after school. And then we'll let him take batting practice first. And then I'll release him and go up to the track.
What position did you play?
I played center field.
Center field.
Actually, there was one day when there were some college recruiters there. So Coach Copeland, Buddy Copeland was our baseball coach. He let me pitch and play shortstop and play outfield. So just to kind of show the scouts that I could, had a little versatility. I might be able to play other places. So that was really cool.
What did you enjoy the most?
Oh, good gosh. It's probably football.
Really?
But baseball was really, really important to me too. Because I had skills that I could pretty excel in baseball. As a matter of fact, my senior year, I played baseball, and I got an opportunity when it was all over. I got a partial scholarship in baseball to University of Oklahoma.
Oh.
Because my youth pastor in my church at First Baptist was a graduate of Oklahoma. He played baseball. He was a pitcher at Oklahoma. And so he had some contacts and everything. Because you didn't get a full scholarship in baseball. Nobody got full scholarships.
Oh.
They were all broken up. And they used financial aid and different ways to build your financial aid package. But there's very few, if any, full baseball scholarships.
But they had them in football.
Oh yeah.
And basketball?
Oh yeah.
But just not baseball.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Well, it was a spring sport.
Oh.
They still considered them minor sports.
Oh.
But there was probably some baseball players that were so good that the school would give them almost 100% scholarship in baseball. But that was very few. They usually broke them up like that.
So when you were in high school, were you part of the group that got to decide whether you stayed at Grand Prairie or go to South, or was that after your time?
Oh, that was the time. I'll never forget it. It was in the spring of our sophomore year. That's when they announced. We knew that we could choose to go to South Grand Prairie because it's going to be at a brand new school. But you talk about, I lived a block from Grand Prairie High School. I bled blue.
Yeah.
I was going to be a Gopher. There's no question about that. But there's a lot of good. There was a lot of good athletes that went to South Grand Prairie to help open it up.
It's a good opportunity for them.
I got a story for you about when I was a sophomore in high school. We had a 4x400 or a mile relay team that was made up of 3 sophomores and 1 senior. And the senior was the slowest of the 3 sophomores. It was Dennis Dowdy, Randy Cothran, and myself. And we set the school record in the mile relay that year.
Wow.
And then they came up with South Grand Prairie, and Dennis and Randy both went to South Grand Prairie.
Oh.
And had great careers. But we always wonder what would have happened if we would have stayed together.
Oh, right.
And by the time we were seniors, we could have maybe set all kinds of records in mile relay.
When you were in high school, when was the first time you played South?
I never played South.
Y'all never played South,
No.
So they didn't start off with a football team over at South.
Well, they started putting a team together, and they were a 3A school, and we were a 4A school, so we were never going to play them until their enrollment grew enough to where they became the same classification, and then Grand Prairie and South Grand Prairie started
That's so interesting.
their rivalry and everything. But no, I never played against them. They were never on the schedule.
Well, and y'all got to play at the bowl.
Oh yeah.
So that was a point of pride.
Oh,
that's still a point of pride.
Yeah, it's I still say to this day, as far as watching a football game, there's not a better place, just because of it's sunk down and the stands are really literally right on top of the action. There's not a bad seat in that stadium.
As a student, like whenever I would go to those games, I just assumed that's what every other high school. I didn't realize it wasn't like that.
No,
all the time.
Yeah. The Gopher Warrior Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say it for you, okay? Because I still call it the Gopher Bowl,
of course.
And but it's a unique place. Matter of fact, in I think it was 2000. Maybe 2010, somewhere in there, we hosted the 2A state championship game.
Really?
Yeah, it was against, I think it was Carthage, or one of the East Texas schools against Muleshoe out of West Texas. And they were looking for, they were, back then, it was not all the games were played at Jerry World. They were different sites, depended on the different divisions. And Muleshoe was a 2A school out in West Texas, and the superintendent and the head coach
excuse me,
both played for me at West Texas State.
Really?
And so they were looking for a site for their state championship game. And they contacted me, and it was a perfect place right between the East Texas and the West Texas. So the Metroplex was ideal. And of course, when they knew about the Gopher Bowl.
Right.
And they said, "You think we could play there?" And we actually hosted them.
So, and they also had Chambers Auditorium.
Yeah.
That was a big deal too.
Oh, yeah.
Has Grand Prairie really always been good with facilities?
Yes.
It seems like they have been.
Yes, they have.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And even going into the schools now, you wouldn't even recognize them. I mean, they're huge.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah, both high schools are just impressive.
Yeah.
To say the least, they've got great facilities.
They do. We went out for our 20th high school reunion. Dad doesn't believe that actually happened. He's like, there's no way that you've been out of school for that long. Cause anyway,
Yeah.
But they gave us a tour, and like even the trainer facility over at South at the time was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, the facilities, I think that's one thing that Grand Prairie does excellently well. Like just all the places that kids can go to school, they do a great job with that. But, so when you were so what made you want to go to Tech of all places?
Of Tech of all places? That's a really good question. No, it was really not a hard decision because I had signed a letter of intent with McMurray University out in Abilene, and they recruited me. Were going to let me play football and baseball, and that was highly unusual. But they were going to let me do both. Like I said, I had the offer of the partial scholarship at OU, which was very enticing. I mean, I really thought about it because University of Oklahoma, that type, impression it made on me. But I'd signed with McMurray, and so I was going to stick with my commitment, and I was going to go to McMurray. At the end of my senior year in May, I graduated after graduation ceremonies. I got a call from Texas Tech from the coach that recruited Grand Prairie High School, just out of the blue. And his name was Tom Wilson, and Coach Wilson said, "Gary, we have a scholarship. We have one scholarship that has come available, and we want to offer you a full football scholarship to Texas Tech." And at first, I thought he was joking. I thought, "Who is this guy?" And he said, "No, I'm serious." And I'm thinking about Texas Tech, Southwest Conference, major university, an opportunity to go play football at that level. And I told Coach Wilson, I said, "Coach Wilson, can I visit with my parents and think about this?" And he said, "Sure, take all the time you need. Just get back with me." And he gave me his phone number. That was late in the afternoon. So my dad got home from work, and I told my dad, I said, "You're not going to believe this." He said, "Texas Tech just called me and offered me a full football scholarship to come play for him and go to school there.
Wow.
And he said, well, what'd you tell him? I said, well, I told him I need to think about it. He said, I tell you, we thought about it long enough. Get back over and call Coach Wilson back. And I found out later that what had happened is that they'd gone through spring training, and one of their defensive backs had gotten a serious injury, and they looked at their depth chart, and they said, we need to get another defensive back. And just so happens that I was still on their board, and I was kind of the next guy up.
Oh, God. So you didn't even know you were even a contender, but they had you. That's interesting.
I didn't even know it. And so I knew my dad had contacted the coach. The head coach at Texas Tech at that time was Jim Carlin. Jim Carlin spoke at our football banquet that year.
Oh.
And because he was recruiting Mike Presley.
Oh, okay.
Presley was the all-state quarterback, and everybody was recruiting Mike. But we got a chance. My dad got a chance to meet Coach Carlin. He was very impressive and everything. So my dad kind of wrote him a letter, just letting him, said, you need to, look at my son. And, did what dads do sometimes, promoting his son. And we never thought much about it after that. But obviously, for some reason, they remembered me. And when that opening came open for a defensive back, I got that call.
So who were the powerhouses in college at that time?
Well, it was Texas.
It was just Texas.
The University of Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas in this area of the Southwest. Not so much LSU. The Aggies were, they were contenders every year. But, the big names, the ones that are going to be atop of the rank is always going to be Texas and Arkansas and Oklahoma. And Texas Tech was an up and coming. Yeah, university. And, of course, they'd done some good things. He'd been to a few bowls. And so I got to go to Texas Tech and play football for the Red Raiders. Got my degree.
Now, I went to Texas Tech, so I'm going to ask a question that I don't know anybody would even know. How big was Lubbock at that time? Couldn't have been that big.
Well, they had a loop around the outside, and there wasn't nothing outside the loop.
Right.
So it wasn't. I don't know exactly how big it was. It was strictly a college town.
Right.
You take Texas Tech out of there, and it's just no farming community. But it was. But it's exploded.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
When I went there, they had built brand new apartments and stuff right outside of the loop. But I can only imagine what it was like. I was reminded. I told you when you came in, I was reminded in the last couple of weeks the thing I hated about living in Lubbock in the pan. Oh my gosh, that wind was so bad. Seeing the yellow sky. That was the worst.
Yeah, last week it looked like Lubbock got blown into Grand Prairie.
It absolutely did.
Yeah.
I hated walking to class on those days. Yeah. It was horrible. So what was it like switching from high school to college? What was that transition like playing?
Well, everybody was good. You come from high school. I was a good player. I'd received some, several honors, being all district and all area and all that stuff. And I was a good player. But every guy on that team was the top player on their team. And so we had, you had this competition was really keen. I tell this story. It's really funny. When I first got there, you understand, I didn't get to take a visit to Texas Tech, a recruiting visit. I wasn't even on their list as as an offer or anything. So when I went to Lubbock, when I reported that August, that's the first time I'd ever been to Lubbock.
Wow.
I had no idea where I was going. They say when you get in town, look for the stadium lights.
Oh my gosh.
And I go into the athletic offices. And I say, well, here I am. And the secretary goes, who are you? And she had to give me direction on where I reported and all stuff. We got off the, it was kind of funny that I just didn't know what I was getting into.
Right.
But I knew one thing. The very first day of practice, they had all the freshmen had to run what they call the Red Raider Mile. They wanted to see what kind of shape we were in. I just knew one thing: I could run, and by golly, I was going to win that. So I won.
Because you were track too.
Yeah. I was the guy that won it. So at least the coaches, when they met, they at least knew what my name was.
That's good.
And they could put my name to. They said, okay, this guy, he came in here in shape.
Right.
I don't know if he can play or not.
But he can run.
Yeah, he can run.
Did you get to play that first year?
No, well, see, back then the freshmen had separate teams. We had a freshman team.
Oh.
We didn't play on the varsity.
Oh,
so
interesting.
I played. Well, your dad played on the Houston freshman team. Matter of fact, we might have played them that year. I'm not sure if we did or not. But I really can't remember if we did or not. But we had a chance to get to know each other, and so the freshmen had their locker room at the other end of the stadium, and they put us alphabetically. And so one of my big rivals all through high school was a kid named Ricky Bates, who played receiver for Arlington, for the Arlington Colts. And sure enough, Bartel, Bates. So we lockered next to each other.
Oh, my goodness.
I didn't even talk to him for the first 3 weeks, really. I said, I guess I'll talk to you, Bates. And he said, yeah, me too. So we got to be real good friends. But it was kind of a neat deal that we'd been rivals all those years. We go off to college, there we are, locker back right next to each other. So
do the freshman teams compete against the other freshman teams?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think we played Houston, New Mexico, Oklahoma. I think we even played UT Arlington.
Oh, interesting.
And we might even played a junior college team in a non-conference game or thing. But we just had 5 or 6 games that they let the freshmen play. So the freshmen were not eligible to play on the varsity.
Was it really just to get y'all ready to play for the big? Okay.
I think I don't think they wanted to throw the freshmen in there. They wanted to have a transitional year, kind of get used to college, just used to the whole different atmosphere and requirements that you had to go through. It's kind of an adjustment year.
Right. So at that time, when you got like a scholarship to go to college, was it for all 4 years? Was that the expectation?
Yes.
Or were you constantly trying to prove that you could stay?
Well, back then, it was a 4-year scholarship. And you had to really mess up to lose it. But there were guys capable of doing that. Luckily, I didn't.
You were not one of them?
Yeah, some of the stupid stuff I did as a freshman and sophomore. But it was a 4-year scholarship. And I got to, that next year, my sophomore year, I got to play. I led in 3 years and played in 3 bowl games.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Back when bowl games really meant something.
Right. There wasn't 1,000 of them.
That's right. There only, I think, there were about 11 or 12 at that time. I played in the Sun Bowl in 72, in the Gator Bowl in 73, and the Peach Bowl in 74.
Oh, that's fun.
And we had a really good team in 73. As a matter of fact, just 2 years ago, they had a reunion for our team.
Oh, fun.
We played Tennessee in the Gator Bowl and beat them. And we finished 11-1.
Wow.
Ranked 9th in the nation.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, that was really a great time. That was one of those memories that you live with forever. And those guys, they're still real close. I was amazed at how many guys showed up.
Oh, that's good.
For a 50-year reunion. And got to see those guys, and we had a great time. So
what were you going to school for?
I was going to school. It was one of those deals, you fill out your application, you got to put down a major. I had no idea what I was going to do. So I said, I'm going to put down business.
Oh, okay.
So I went to school, going to get a degree in business management. And about the end of my sophomore year, that's when I realized, hey, I want to be a coach. I want to teach kids, and I want to be a coach. And so I changed my degree to education, secondary education, got my certification in physical education and business education. So I didn't lose those hours that I'd taken in business. And that was my degree in education. And I tell everybody, this is kind of crazy. I got a degree. I got certified to teach. I've never taught a class.
Were you thinking at the time you were going to be a high school coach?
I had I had my eyes set on being a college coach.
Did you?
Yeah. And there were people that along the way the good Lord put in my path that helped me. I couldn't have played for a better group of men than the coaches that coached me at Texas Tech. Richard Bell was the defensive coordinator. Dale Evans was my position coach. They were tremendous Christian men. And, they were in the business for the right reason. And had a great influence on me. And then when I graduated and got into graduate school, I was a graduate assistant on the defensive side of the ball because that's where I played.
Mm-hmm.
And the defensive coordinator was Bill Parcells.
Wow.
And he was my mentor. I got to work under him for a whole year. I shared an office with a guy named Romeo Cornell. Romeo, if you don't know, he was on the staff with Coach Parcells at the New York Giants when they won the Super Bowls.
Oh, wow.
Romeo became the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, and he ended up with the Houston Texans. Romeo's now retired, living in Florida, living a life of leisure. Yeah. But,
so did you go to graduate school just to stay on and help coach?
Yep.
So did you get your No.
I got I finished that first year. I got a few hours in grad school, but I worked there with Coach Parcells, and then that next year or the spring it'd be the winter of '77. My high school coach, Bill Young, got the head job at West Texas State University, and he called me and he hired me.
Oh, wow.
On his staff. So at the tender age of 23, I was a Division I assistant coach.
Did you ever watch the show Coach?
Oh yeah.
Who was that guy that was the student, but he was also the assistant coach? The real tall Dauber. I told my dad I just watched that series because it came on one of the streaming shows. Yeah. So you remind me of that because he stayed on. He got to be a student and also be a coach.
Yeah.
So what was it like? What was Bill Parcells like?
He was like he was.
He was.
Yeah, like you see him on TV. He's hard.
Was he?
He's tough. He's tough on those kids, but he demanded, the best out of them, and he had a way of getting it out of them. Mm-hmm. He was really very thorough, very thorough in what he taught and what he believed in, and everybody's on the same ship. And he, make sure that he was leading it right. But he was hard. He was a tough, hard-nosed guy, and. You see the stuff on the sideline, him on the sidelines yelling at those players and stuff. Yeah, he would do that.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a Parcells story.
Yeah, please.
I'm sitting there and we're in spring. I think we're in spring training. And we're not practicing really well. We had a couple of bad practices. We're sitting in the defensive staff meeting and we're doing a script of the team. We're going to do plays with a script. And he screams, okay, right here, after this play, I'm gonna yell at you, Coach Patterson. Coach Patterson was the defensive line coach. So I'm gonna yell at you and I'm gonna tell you that your defensive linemen suck and they're not playing very good. And they're the reason we haven't been practicing well. And I want you to come back at me. And you want you to yell at me. And then I want you to come after me. We're gonna get in a fight. Okay, you other guys, y'all got to help break it up. But he staged a fight in practice so those kids will see how important they are to their coach.
Wow.
So when I'm going to attack the defensive lineman, Patterson is going to come after me.
Wow.
So I'm sitting there, I'm a young guy, and I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, he staged a fight? And I'm sitting there doing the script, and all of a sudden, the point in practice comes, and sure enough, he just yells at Coach. I'm not going to say what he said, but it would have been bleeped out. But he yelled at Patterson, cussed back at him, and got after him, and started attacking.
Oh my gosh!
And so we all run in there, and the players separate them and everything.
So it was like a physical altercation.
Yeah,
oh my God.
It was a real fight. And
wow.
I'm sitting there, but it was staged. And I said, that's brilliant. I said, I can't believe
Did it work?
Yeah. We never had a bad practice after that.
Oh, good.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
That's crazy.
And it was something that I saw him do, and I could see there's a madness, reason to the madness. Mm-hmm. Just, like he yells at people. Gets after people, but that was just his style. I mean, he's hard-nosed. He was a hard-nosed coach, and his defense played that way. We had some great defenses in those years he was there. He was only there, let's see, 2-3 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he got the head coaching job at Air Force.
Oh, okay.
After that, and then I think he eventually moved into the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And he got his chance to be a head coach there with the Giants.
So do you think there was just a totally different coaching style back then, just in general, that there is now?
I think so.
I think Dad told me the story about when he was I think he missed practice or they wanted him to miss practice because he had mono or some kind of something that was real contagious. And he really wanted to show up and do practice, and they were going to let him. And he's like, they would never have let me do that. But that's just how it was. Like there was a lot expected of you guys. And he always says he would never make it as a coach today.
Oh, no. No way.
Because the style is just so different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So after you left there, you went to West Texas A&M, you said?
It's West Texas A&M now, but it was West Texas State University.
Oh, okay.
We were in the Missouri Valley Conference, and we won 2 championships there.
So in all this time, did you meet any special lady? Were you?
Yeah.
So was a woman was a wife traveling with you doing all this stuff?
Yeah, I met my wife.
And did you meet her at Tech?
I met her at Tech.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She got a job in the athletic dining hall.
Really?
So she fed me food every day.
So when I guess it was the second year that I stayed there, I stayed in Coleman, which was the athletic dorm. Yeah. And I loved it because we got to eat in the athletic.
Absolutely.
That was the best because they had soft serve ice cream.
Yes.
That you could get for free. And we loved that. So so you met her and y'all got married. So being a coach's wife is not easy.
It's hard.
It is hard.
It's real hard. As a matter of fact, our marriage lasted 7 years.
Mm.
We had 2 little boys.
Mm-hmm.
And I left West Texas State, went for a year to UTEP. I was in El Paso. Mm-hmm. That was quite an experience.
Was it? Oh, I bet.
And then I went back to West Texas State when they had a coaching change. And then in 1984, 1985, I came to UTA. Because my wife was from Louisville.
Oh, okay.
And we were struggling. So I said, let's get her back close to her family. And that'll help. And everything. We came to UTA. And in 1985, we had it was 84. We had a pretty good season. 85, we had a really good team. And we got beat in the last game that cost us a co-championship of the Southland Conference. So we were real close to winning the Southland Conference, but it wasn't good enough because after that season, the president at UTA decided to drop the football program.
Why?
Money.
Really?
It's always financial. And everything. Plus, the UTA at that time was pretty much a commuter school.
It still is.
So a lot of the students on the weekends after classes on Friday, they went home. Mm-hmm. They went and watched their high school team play, but they didn't come back on Saturday when we had our game. So we didn't have, a lot of support as much as the president felt like we needed. Mm-hmm. But it was a money deal, and they decided to drop football. So I got a chance to experience getting dropped. I tell everybody, I never got fired, but I got dropped.
Oh my gosh! Look, what was that like? Being a coach to me seems hard. Like it's a hard life because you're constantly having to try to prove yourself for either to stay around or to get another job.
And you're going to move.
Yes,
you're going to move. Very few get to just stay at one place for a long time.
Which is why my dad became a principal.
Yeah,
because he just was like, I don't want to. That's just not. He doesn't like change like that all the time. And he's like, I knew that that's what I was going to have to do. Yeah. And then when he started having us, he's like, it's just, so it's hard.
Yeah, it is. It's hard being a coach's wife.
Yes.
And I understood that.
Yes.
And so I didn't hold any grudges or anything like that. But I tell everybody 1985 was a year to remember for me because my divorce was final in July. And then in November, they dropped football, so I lost my job.
In 85 or 95?
It was 85.
85.
1985.
That's not an easy year.
No, that's a tough year. Mm-hmm. But, it all worked out. God always has a plan.
Where'd you go next?
I actually kind of hung around here trying to look at different jobs and different opportunities. But I ended up going to Louisiana Tech. Had Carl Torbush was the head coach, He'd just gotten the job, and he called me. Texas Tech and Ole Miss were playing in the Independence Bowl. Carl was the defensive coordinator at Ole Miss, but he just got the Louisiana Tech job. So he's going to finish, with the bowl game at Ole Miss, but he's going to take over the Louisiana Tech program right after that. And he was going to take one of his assistant coaches, Ron Case, with him to coach the defensive backs. Ron Case and I had coached together at West Texas State. Ron Case, after he thought about it, he says, I'm not going to go to Louisiana Tech. I'm not going to leave Ole Miss to go to Louisiana Tech. I'm going to stay here. But here, Carl, here's the guy you need to coach. And he gave him my name. So out of the clear blue, he calls me and he says, I want to talk to you about coming to Louisiana Tech. So I drove over to Shreveport the day before the Independence Bowl, and I sat in the hotel room with Carl Torbush for about 6 hours. And we talked. It was an interview that turned into just a great session. And by the time I walked out of there, I had the job. And so I ended up going to Louisiana Tech.
How was it different going to Louisiana from Texas? Like, is it just a different?
Not collegiately.
No.
It's pretty much the same. It was all the same rules. And, Louisiana Tech was a small college town in Ruston, Louisiana, and it had a lot of history. Terry Bradshaw was from there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was the quarterback there, and there's a lot of people that had just that had been there for a long time, and it was. I didn't know this. It was right next door to Grambling University.
Oh.
They're 5 miles apart.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So you actually had 2 college towns.
Oh, wow.
Right next to each other.
Wow.
But I spent 7 years at Louisiana Tech.
Wow.
That's where I met my wife, my second wife. I met her at Louisiana. She worked at Louisiana Tech. And
okay.
I met her there. She had a son from her first marriage. And I had my 2 boys. My 2 boys were 2 years apart, and her son fit right in the middle.
Oh, wow.
So they all played ball together, did everything together. It was a great time.
Wow. That worked out well.
Yeah, I told her, I says, the reason I married you because your son was the biggest kid in his class. I knew he was going to be a college football player.
You were just doing recruiting.
I started recruiting early. I already did my evaluation. I was ready to sign him.
Now, was she from Louisiana?
She was from Alabama.
Oh, wow.
From Athens, Alabama. And which is the north part of Alabama, and she ended up there at Louisiana Tech with her her husband and her son, and she had gone through a divorce, and we looked at the timing and everything. We think that we got divorced about the same time.
Oh my goodness!
And that's why we believe that God really had His hands in this whole thing. Because I ended up coming from Grand Prairie, Texas, or from Arlington at UTA. To Ruston, Louisiana, and she comes from Athens, Alabama to Ruston, Louisiana, and she's working at the same university. Well, in fact, we met at church.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the singles department at Cook Baptist Church.
Man, I go to First Baptist now, and we were talking about needing to really encourage that singles ministry because there's a lot of people that meet through church singles ministries.
Absolutely.
So that's good because y'all were older. Y'all were older singles. Y'all weren't college and career.
That's right.
I would assume
it was funny. They put all the singles in the same department and put us in the basement.
Y'all can come up when y'all get married.
That's exactly right. See if you can find somebody that you can live with.
Oh, you're like, that's encouraging. Thanks.
Yeah, really. So we got married, and I stayed there 7 years, and then I had an opportunity to go to the University of Houston. Kim Helton was the head coach, and he needed the defensive back coach, and I'd had a couple of good years with the defense there at Louisiana Tech. And I guess there was a coach on that staff named Danny Palmer. Danny had coached with me at UTA.
Small world, isn't it?
Yeah, he coached there, and so he was at University of Houston. He recommended me to Coach Helton, and so I got the opportunity to go over there. And I was at the University of Houston for 5 years. And matter of fact, when they disbanded the Southwest Conference, Houston got into the Conference USA. And we won the first Conference USA championship and played Syracuse in the Liberty Bowl.
Do they still have that?
The Liberty Bowl?
No, the
Conference USA.
They do.
Yeah. And I stayed there 5 years, and then one of my good friends that was with me at Louisiana Tech had gone to LSU as a linebacker, and he got the head job. Jerry Baldwin got the head job at Louisiana Lafayette. And he called me and wanted to know if I'd come over there and be the assistant head coach and coach the defense. So I went over there with Jerry, and I was there 5 years. So that's a total of about 28 years. And my daddy still lived in Grand Prairie. My mom and dad lived here, and he was getting on up there, and his health was getting a little shaky. And so I was trying to say, I need to get back home. My dad and I were really close. I said, I'd like to try to get back closer to Grand Prairie, to the Metroplex. So I had two choices. What were they? TCU or SMU?
Right.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So UTA didn't have football.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said, so I went and talked to Gary Patterson over at TCU. He didn't have anything open. And then I went to SMU, and Phil Bennett was the coach there at that time. And I knew the Bennett brothers, and Phil was there at SMU. And I went to talk to him, and he didn't have anything. And he told me, I'll never forget it. He says, even if I had anything, I don't think you should come here because I'm probably going to get fired.
Oh, my God.
And I always appreciated Phil for being so honest about it and everything. So I said, well, my other choice, what was your other? North Texas. I guess would be the other choice. And you could make more money as a high school coach, a head high school coach in Texas than you could as an assistant coach at North Texas at that time. And the Grand Prairie job just came open. I knew Jerry Bomar. Gary Bomar and I were teammates at Texas Tech. So I'd known him for years. I knew his situation. His son was the best quarterback in the state.
What did he do at the time?
What Red do?
No, Jerry.
Jerry, he's the head football coach at Grand Prairie High School.
Oh, at Grand Prairie High. Got you.
And so I was, I'd recruited. That's the neat thing. I had recruited the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex my whole college career. Because I was from here. Right. I could get around here without a map.
Right.
And they we didn't have any kind of apps or any navigation on our phones or anything. So I said, I need to go check on that. In other words, I think Fred Clausen was the athletic director at that time. And he called me. I expressed an interest, so he called me. And I met with him. And sure enough, next thing I know, I'm offered the job at Grand Prairie High School.
Wow.
And I said, I get to go back to my home.
Yes.
School that I graduated from and coached there. And so I got excited about doing that. And it was a little bit tough telling the coaches at Lafayette that I was going to leave. But I felt like it was the thing I needed to do because I really did want to get closer to my family, to my mom and dad. And I had a great, like I said, Pat, my wife, who I met at Louisiana Tech, she's tremendous. I mean, she's unbelievable, very supportive. She said, whatever you want to do, let's go. And so we packed up and moved again and came here to Grand Prairie. Wow. That was in 2004. That's when I came here, got my first job. And people always tell me, why'd you take that job? I said, listen, I recruited the Metroplex. I knew exactly what I was getting into. Sure. I saw the whole development, the growth of the city, of the area. I knew what was happening. I knew that most of the families moving into Grand Prairie were moving into the south part of town. That's where all the new the building was. And I had seen it. I'd watched the whole development, the whole time that from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And I saw, because I recruited, I knew that there weren't the athletes or the numbers at Grand Prairie High that's the schools down south, like South Grand Prairie, Cedar Hill, Duncanville, DeSoto. Right. That's where the growth was. That's where the kids were going. And so I didn't come into this thing blind at all. So
that's I wouldn't have even thought about that, but you're right. because I mean, well, and so football, when it comes to high school and all, I mean, even Duncanville to this day only has one high school. And football is a big part of how schools do things.
There's no question.
They're planning.
And DeSoto and Cedar Hill.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I came when I'd watched as I recruited the area. I saw how the growth was going, and I saw the pattern. I knew that in the 80s, Grand Prairie High School still has some really good athletes, and I think they went to the playoffs like in 82 and 85, 89. 89 was their last year. And I was at Louisiana Tech, and I recruited kids.
That was last year until you got there that they went to the playoffs?
Yes.
Wow.
1989. And I remember recruiting Don Marshall, his son. I ran track with Don Sr., and little Don, his son, was a receiver at that time on the 89 team, and I was recruiting the dog. I says, listen, we need you at Louisiana Tech. But he kept telling me, he says, I think I'm going to go to Texas Tech. And I said, that's okay, just as long as you go to Tech.
Yeah.
Either one. And but I recruited a lot of kids, and I could see where the talent was as far as Division I players. And I knew what I was getting into. And people don't realize this. In the 14 years I was at Grand Prairie High School, I had 7 or 8 Division I football players that I, as a Division I coach, I would have recruited as football players. And we were playing against Cedar Hill, DeSoto, even South Grand Prairie. You had to some of those DeSoto teams and Duncanville teams and Cedar Hill teams, they'd have 7 or 8 in 1 year.
Right.
You know, and I'm sitting there in 14 years, I have, Division I. So I knew what I was getting into. You know, everybody says, why'd you take that? I said, I took that job because that's where God wanted me to be. That's where I wanted to coach. I wanted to be back in Grand Prairie, and I knew that was basically my calling to do that.
How did, as a high school football coach, well, now Grand Prairie has more of an open school of choice.
Open enrollment, yeah.
So, but that's not how it was even back when you started.
That's right. You had boundaries.
Yeah. So, what do you do when you get in there and you're like, okay, I'm in this area. This is the area that I have. Yep. There's no, because really at that point, Grand Prairie really was, the north side really wasn't developing any new neighborhoods or anything.
They were landlocked.
Yeah, they were all landlocked.
You go north, Irving to the north, Arlington to the west, and Oak Cliff to the east. The only growth could happen south. So we pretty much were landlocked. The thing you got to do, you got to build through your youth football program, and you got to build through your middle schools. You got to get those kids excited about being a Gopher, or coming to your school.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that there's a lot of recruiting going on, and you're losing kids. I'll never forget. I had a great player that was a defensive lineman, and he made all district, and he's going to be a great going into his senior year. And all of a sudden, he moved to DeSoto. Just to get kind of out of the blue, and I couldn't figure out why that happened. He got recruited.
That'd be really challenging.
And they recruit the parents.
They recruit, right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Here's a story. Okay, I'm gonna give this story to you, and this will be the first time I think I've ever shared it on air.
Ooh, an exclusive.
Yeah, I was. Let's see. I had the sophomore offensive player of the year at Grand Prairie High School. Great player. Going to be a great player. And he went that summer after sophomore year. He went to football camp over at TCU, and they had some other high school kids there, really outstanding players. One of them was his last name was Sanders, and he did really well, and they kind of became friends. And all of a sudden, Deion Sanders is sitting up in the stands with his mom and dad, talking to them. And now I know I verified this because the TCU coaches told me.
Wow.
What was going on. And basically that next week, probably I think Tuesday of that next week, this boy's parents were in my office telling me that they felt like they needed to go to Trinity Christian in Cedar Hill, where Dion was the coach. Felt like he'd get a better education, is better opportunity for him to go there. So Dion, basically recruited him, and that kid went to Trinity Christian and played 2 years there and had a great career.
Wow.
And
that's got to be frustrating.
Well, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And that boy ended up getting a scholarship at Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I could have gotten him a scholarship at Baylor.
Sure.
Yeah, I could have got him a scholarship at a lot of schools, if he would have stayed and played in our league in District 6A, in the 6A district, he could have gone anywhere he wanted to go. But he didn't get to play for me because he went down and played.
Did that happen more? Did that happen frequently?
Yes.
That's got to be frustrating.
It's really happening a whole lot. It's more and more and more because, that the college transfer portal and the NIL money and all that stuff is starting to trickle down in high school. Yeah, there's people being recruited the same way through camps and combines and stuff. It's happening everywhere.
How do you feel about that? Well,
yeah, if they're gonna allow recruiting, I'll just say out loud, everything's open district,
right?
Open enrollment. Go get them however you want to get them.
Yeah.
But there needs to be some kind of a regulation. The UIL doesn't have very good control on that right now.
Really?
It's pretty much right. Well, let's be honest. Okay. All of a sudden, the Duncanville's a powerhouse. DeSoto's a powerhouse. South Oak Cliff is a powerhouse. Cedar Hill is not the powerhouse they used to be. But those kids are being recruited to Duncanville and DeSoto and South Oak Cliff. And, it's either, you got to do something to combat it. You got to get in there and jump in there and do it.
It's hard because even Duncanville. So my daughter goes to a charter school over off of Loop 12. So we get a lot of Duncanville High School parents that bring them over to that charter school because Duncanville it's just one school. They only have one high school and it's like 3 city blocks. It's like a huge city just on its own, but there's so many students there. And a lot of that is the sports program. They wanted to keep all those athletes in the same high school. But as a result of that, the school is just so big, they can't control everything that goes on inside.
Right.
So those parents bring them over to.
Let me ask you this: do those kids at the charter school? Does the charter school have athletics?
Yes, Avery's does. That's one of the reasons why I picked that one.
Right.
They started off with a flag football team. And then they went to 6-man, and then they just went to 11-man. Yeah. 11-man is a totally different ball game. And I was actually on the school board in 2020 to 2022, which is an interesting time to be on a school board during the pandemic. But
no question.
But then when they moved up, the hard part is our school will it can only have so many students because we're not expanding anymore. There's no place to expand in that high school. So it's but moving that 6-man to 11-man is a huge shift.
Yes.
And I actually talked to my dad about it because I didn't realize it was that much of a change. He's like, oh yeah, because you play different, you practice different. So
equipment's different.
Yes.
All that stuff. And
so they've been doing that now for a couple years, but we also have basketball, we have baseball, softball, tennis.
Good.
We have a really huge robotics program. But then we also have, we have prom and all that. I really wanted Avery to have that experience.
Sure.
And a lot of those students really play those sports, and as parents feel, to get the experience of being on a team. It's not that they're going to go there to be recruited by a college.
Yeah.
They're going there because we like that school. We want them to play with each other and learn how to be on a sport. But we don't have any hopes of but with UIL rules, we're not in UIL,
right.
But it's hard to do that when you're a small school. I'm real curious with all this, all the changes that are happening in education, how that's going to work out. Because when you have a smaller school in UIL, it totally changes the rules about grades and who can move. There's high academic rigor at our school. So if you fail, you fail. Yeah. But with UIL, how are you going to do that when you have 11-man football? it's hard in a smaller school. So
yes, it is.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot about that.
Uh-huh.
And I have over the last few years.
Yeah.
But it's good. But it's a smaller school. It's a safe school. There's the teachers still have control over what goes on with the students. But when you get to some of these big, huge high schools, they're huge. It's like, how do you have control over that many students at one time? So it's interesting.
I don't have an answer.
There's no answer.
Yeah.
So, but then what I like about what Grand Prairie did was, they still have the two big schools, but now they have other high schools also.
Yeah, schools of choice. That's
Yes.
what Dr. Hall, that's what she brought to it.
She was that was her legacy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But, for the kids that didn't care about the athletics side, they wanted to go into the business or they wanted to do those kinds of things.
Sure.
It was great for them.
Yeah, I think the Bisky High School
Mhm.
is a tremendous place for kids to learn a trade or to go specialize in different areas that they don't have athletics.
Right.
Now, that's one of my pet peeves about it is that those kids that go to that school, when they opened that school, they were supposed to be allowed
to play
sports at Grand Prairie High and South Grand Prairie High School. They could go there. As a matter of fact, the first year they opened, they had a kicker that went to Bisky, and he could come over and he kicked for us. He actually got a football scholarship to go to college because he was that good a kicker. And if he had not been able to come to Grand Prairie High School,
right,
to participate in football, he wouldn't have got that scholarship.
That's one of the things as a parent. Like, I love what Bisky does, but I also want Avery to have that experience,
extracurricular,
yes,
be able to participate.
There is something special about having that team to root for. Going to the games and all that. That's definitely an experience, and it's hard, and that's what you have to choose when it comes to like places like Bisky. There's not a band, there's not any of that. That's what you're doing, and for some students that's good. Yeah. But for me, it's like I want her to be able to do that, and so.
But see, originally when Bisky was open, they were supposed to be able to do that.
I wonder why they stopped.
Well, that's a question for the school board and for the superintendent, because those kids, if they choose that academic route, okay, they still need to be given the opportunity to participate in extracurriculars, and they need to go to the school that's in their attendance zone.
Right.
And I don't know why that was changed.
I don't either.
Everybody's going to say, well, there's a conflict. They had different programs and different things they had to do, and there was a conflict sometimes with the scheduling. They had to make a choice between one or the other. Yep, that could be an issue. But then you tell those kids when they choose to go to Bisky,
right,
that has to be priority.
That's right.
That's priority. But if there's not a conflict, then you can go play in the band, or you go play football or baseball or volleyball or whatever, be in the drill team, whatever it would be, they should be able to do that.
Yeah, if the family can work it out and they can figure out how to do it, then do it.
And then the argument is, well, we can't transport them over there. We don't want them we can't use the bus to take them over there. Well, if they want to play, they'll find a way to get over there.
Absolutely.
If they want to. So I don't know. I don't know. In my old age, I might go over to the school board and ask them why they changed that.
Well, you had it. Well, because when you became athletic director, did they make that decision before you got there?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it was done long before I got there. I'll tell you another thing that last year that I coached in 2017, there was a couple of kids at the Fine Arts Academy, which they turned the 9th grade center at Grand Prairie High School into a Fine Arts Academy. And so those kids came from all over Grand Prairie to go to the Fine Arts School. Well, I had a couple of guys out there practicing, running around on the practice field, and they looked like pretty good athletes. So I walked up there and said, where you guys go to school? And I said, we go to school right there in the Fine Arts Academy. Well, I said, why don't y'all just, when school's out, y'all come out here and play football, which was legal, UIL rules, because that school, the Fine Arts Academy, did not offer athletics.
Right.
So because they did not offer athletics, they could go to the school in their attendance
So
zone.
that's actually in a UIL rule?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I didn't realize that.
And so they could come. So they came after they got out of school. They just walked down the hill.
That's awesome.
And they played football. And one of them got a scholarship to North Texas.
Oh, my goodness.
Because they had the chance to do that.
Wow.
And it was unbelievable.
You don't think about that kind of stuff whenever you're making changes, like it's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Like the UI, like that is something I wouldn't have even thought about, that UIL has addressed this issue. Like if your school doesn't have this, you can participate.
Yes.
Because even with school of choice, you still have your own zone school.
Yes.
So you can always go to whatever school is in your according to your address.
Right.
So, you know, you just don't think that that's something to think about, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
So did that all how did that affect the way that you coached while you were there? Well, first of all, how was it? What were some of the differences with coaching college versus coaching high school? Like
the difference,
like some of the differences. I would assume you had a lot more parents to deal with being a high school coach.
Yeah, I had no problems at college, coaching a college. I tell you what, in 28 years, I had one daddy came to talk to me about his son's playing time.
That's it, just one.
One.
Mm-hmm.
He's from Childress, Texas. I was at West Texas State, and his son wasn't playing as much as he thought he should.
Mm.
So he came to see me.
Mm-hmm.
And he sat down in my office. I says, Mr. Johnson, it's good to see you. What can I help you with? He said, well, I just want to talk about my son. He should be playing more. And I just said, Mr. Johnson, I says, it's my job to put the best players on the field. He said he practices. I evaluate him every day. And he's playing as much as he should play. Because he's a backup right now. He's not a starter. And if you want to go someplace to be a starter, I'll be glad to sign his release and take his scholarship back. And he can go wherever he wants to go. And when I said, I'll take his scholarship back, he said, whoa.
That put a kibosh to that conversation.
That's into that.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no. And that was the only time a parent ever came in my office to talk to me about playing time in college. Different story when you got to high school.
I would imagine so. But
it's the same thing. You evaluate them, and you have to make a decision what's best for the team, and where he should be playing, and what position, and how much he should play. And you try to convey that to the parents and to the players, and they're either going to accept it or they're going to say, "Oh, that's not right." And so, what do they usually do? They find a way to transfer, go someplace else. It is so easy now because of all the open enrollment.
Sure.
Stuff like that. But you try to make a situation, try to make an environment, a situation where they like being where they are.
Sure.
And that's part of coaching, especially in high school.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you were a college coach, did you have anybody get recruited into the NFL?
I had 19.
19?
Yeah. Over the years. Had let's see, three Super Bowl champs. I had Tim McKyer with the 49ers, Doug Evans with the Packers, and Ike Taylor with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I bet that makes watching NFL games a lot more interesting.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. One of my favorite players was a kid named Charles Tillman. Played for the Bears. His nickname was Peanut Tillman.
Why?
And you can even hear people talk. The announcers talk about the peanut punch. He kind of really mastered the idea of punching the ball out, creating turnovers.
Oh,
His name was Charles Peanut Tillman, and they call it the peanut punch.
Oh,
and
my
actually,
goodness.
the NFL did made some kind of rule about how you can punch at the ball.
Really?
And it caused turnovers. That's a big deal now. Down in football at every level.
Wow.
They talk about causing the turnovers and punching the ball out and stuff like that. Peanut was the first, or been given credit being one of the first, to really master that art.
That's another thing too that you don't really think about is that the game has been played different over time.
Oh yeah.
And so, what were some of the biggest changes to the game itself that affected how you coached over the years, or have there been really?
Well, I think the just the game itself is leaned so much more toward offense.
Really?
Yeah, because it's more entertaining. You don't want to go to a football game and watch the team win 10-7.
Right.
A real football purist that understands the game, they can get off on that. But they want to see the bombs and the long passes and wide open offenses and stuff. That's what's happened. And it's tougher on defensive coaches because the game is slanted so much toward the offense and the show.
Yeah.
Putting on the show and scoring a bunch of points. And watching the quarterback run around and make plays and throw the ball down the field. I couldn't coach. I coached defensive backs for my whole career. I don't know if I could coach defensive backs now.
Really?
Because of the rules. I don't know what to tell them.
Really?
If you're running down the field looking for a deep pass, how do you defend it? I mean, if you go up for the ball and you bump a guy or for some reason your arm hooks on a guy's shoulder or something happens, you're going to get called for interference. And it's just a harder game now to coach up, and that they'll call defensive holding on just about everything, but they can also call offensive holding about every play, as your dad would verify.
Yeah,
coaching the offensive line. But I think the rules of the game are where they're more lean toward offense. Hopefully it might turn back the other way, but it's hard right now.
It is and I'm sure that NFL affects it, just goes downstream. Yeah. So it's like what's popular with the NFL is going to be popular with all the rest of them. When you went from being a coach to an athletic director, how different was that? And how did that opportunity present itself?
Well, Troy Matthew was the athletic director, and I was the head coach at Grand Prairie High. And Troy took a job in Dallas. He took the AD's job in Dallas. I think he had been there before. Troy's been to several places, both college and high school. So he went to GPISD, so there was an opening for the AD position. And this is really how it happened. Dr. Hull called me and said, Coach Bartel, I'm going to meet with the school board. And I'd like to tell them that we're going to hire from within, that we don't have to go outside, but we're going to hire from within. What do you think about that? And I said, well, I think that's a good idea. Who do you have in mind? You. That's exactly how it happened.
Wow.
And I said, well, can I have a day to think about it? They usually let me have a day to think about it. And I went on and talked to Pat about it. And, someday I was going to end my coaching career.
I was going to say, were you getting to the point where you were kind of thinking about retirement at some point?
Yeah, exactly. I had been, and she knew I had a real good friend on the school board named J.D. Stewart. And I'd talked to J.D. and he kind of knew what I was thinking. So rather than just hang it up, he said, let's move into the athletic administration side of it. And so I thought about it. And I said, yeah. I said, I think that's something I'd be interested in doing. It didn't hurt. It was a substantial raise.
Really?
From being the head football coach on a campus to being the athletic director for the entire district.
Sure.
So I called her back. I said, I'd like to do that. And so
how many sports or teams? How many did y'all have?
Well, think about it.
It's a lot.
Yeah, you got every sport and every team and all the middle schools,
right?
And all the high school, both the high schools. So we got 7 middle schools.
When did they switch from having because when I was in elementary school, we had a football team in elementary school, but that was in the 80s. I don't know when that stopped.
There was no elementary. I think the Grand Prairie Youth Football League and those things kind of took that over. So there was no elementary schools. So you basically look at the girls and boys sports,
right,
at all the middle schools, in both the high schools, and you're in charge. of everything. You're in charge of the budget. You're in charge of the officials, the game workers, everything. You have to get that lined up and be in charge. You're smart to delegate it, get the good. We had good people working at schools already, so it's just a matter of just keeping them going. But when you look at the scope,
That's huge
compared to just being a athletic campus coordinator on a campus, now you got the whole athletic.
Was there
any
part of you that was like, fake it until you make it? Like when you got there, you were like, I don't know how to do this. This is too much. Or were you pretty solid whenever you started?
Well, I was pretty solid. Being the coordinator at the high school, being the coordinator at the high school, you pretty much in charge of the boys and girls sports on both sides, the whole campus.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. You just weren't the football coach. You were also the athletic coordinator. So that make your job easier, you had to make sure you hired good head coaches.
Sure.
To do the job, and we had good coaches at Grand Prairie High School as well as South Grand Prairie High School. I always get the kick. People would always say, "How could you be the athletic director for GPISD in a true blooded Gopher and be fair?"
Right.
And people had some concerns. I understood that. So I probably went a little bit overboard sometimes in doing a little bit more for South.
Really? Trying to compensate?
Yeah. But I tried to, do them, try to treat them the same. Boy, we had good people, good coaches. Brent Whitson was great. I'd known him before when I think he was out at Weatherford or somewhere in West Texas. But I'd known Brent, and of course, when I left, I was on the committee. We hired Coach Tony Tatamy. Tony and I had coached on 3 different college staffs together. And so I knew what kind of coach, what kind of person he was.
Sure.
And I knew he'd do a good job. And then, Brent left, and I guess Laban came back. Coach DeLay. But I knew those guys, and I knew, they were going to be easy to work with, and they're going to be.
3 years into it, you had the pandemic.
Yeah.
I interviewed Jennifer McFalls, who was she played for the Olympic softball team.
Yeah.
But now she's the head coach of Kansas, I think, head softball coach, or she was at the time.
Right.
And I interviewed her in 2020 about recruiting and how that the pandemic changed everything when it came to that. So you were athletic director when that whole thing happened.
Yeah.
How hard was that?
Well, I'll tell you how hard it was, is that we had to get ready for the season. And I, along with a lot of the workers for the district, we were out there taping off bleachers.
Oh, my gosh. Yes.
Every other bleacher had to be taped off. You had that 6 feet apart from everybody. I mean, it was just unbelievable. It was 2020. In the fall, we actually started football late, like a month later than normal, trying to get ready for everything. And it was during that time we had our first game. South Grand Prairie had played their first game in the bowl, and I would just, we couldn't sell tickets. Everything had to be done, online. I mean, it was just crazy. Did
they have to play in masks?
No. No. They didn't have to play in masks. They could, wear their helmets.
That whole thing.
It was just crazy. But that was fall, that first game, Jim Swafford was the voice of the Warriors. He was the PA announcer, and Rodney Anderson was his spotter. In other words, sat up there and helped him spot people and everything. And I went up into the press box to visit with them before the game. And we sat there and talked. And he told me, he says, "This is going to be crazy. I hope we can see their numbers and hope we can tell who's who, because everybody, the coaches had masks on, and I mean, it was crazy." But that was on a Friday night. That next day, Jim called me and told me that he had been exposed to COVID. I think he had a lady that came in and helped with his wife. His wife was in bad health. And so he called me and told me about it. He said, "You ought to go get tested." Because that's back when you get tested, and then a couple of days later they tell you the results. They couldn't tell you
right
quick like they can now. So that's when that Monday I went and got tested, and then Wednesday they told me I tested positive. So that's when I got COVID. And so
you had quite the experience.
Yeah. Then after 2 or 3 days later, I was in the hospital. I went to the emergency room. I couldn't breathe. I was coughing crazy, and I went through a tough time with COVID. So I spent my last year and a half, last year,
being sick.
Yeah, being sick, stuff like that. So it was a tough time. And I think Jim and his wife Judy both passed away.
I remember that.
Yeah, they both died of COVID.
You had such an experience. The Dallas Morning News wrote a story on you.
Yeah.
Because how long were you in the hospital?
6 months.
Were you in a coma?
I was on a ventilator for about 3 months. And then, of course, after that, I was in the recovery stage and all that stuff.
My goodness.
It was tough.
Yeah.
It was a really tough. That's when my wife proved how much she loved me and what kind of a superstar she is. She's with me the whole time. And, of course, the first 3 months I was on that ventilator, I didn't know what was going on.
You didn't?
No, they had a feeding tube in my stomach. They was feeding me through a feeding tube, and I was on that ventilator. I was pretty much out of it. I didn't even know who won the World Series.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't even, that was the year 2020 was the election year.
Yes, it was.
I don't even know who I voted for.
Oh my goodness.
I don't even know if I even voted. If I voted or not.
You're like, you coming to, and oh my gosh. Speaking of the World Series, today's opening day.
I know it.
Of the Rangers. I can't believe that.
I know it.
So like you were there, and your son is a doctor?
No. My son is a football coach, Clint, and my other son is a financial planner.
But he had something to do with your recovery, didn't one of them?
My brother.
Your brother. Okay.
My oldest brother. He's a neurologist.
Okay.
Matter of fact, on Halloween night,
this is the one that walked into Adams the first
Yeah,
okay.
That's Danny. That's Danny. And he's a neurologist, lives in Wichita Falls. And actually, in October, on Halloween night, they called the family. They said I wasn't going to make it.
Wow.
They said this looks like the end, and so they called the family. And my brother came down from Wichita Falls, and because nobody could go into the room, they wouldn't let you go in and visit anybody, and because he was a doctor, they allowed him to go in. And Danny went in there and actually looked at my charts, looked at the medication, what they were doing for me, and he changed some of it.
Wow.
He said, you can't do this. You can't bring him off of this medicine this quickly. You got to change it. And he changed things. And actually that night, after he got finished doing it, things started getting better. And by the next morning, my vitals had come back. And, everything said, it looks like he's going to make it.
Wow.
And, of course, I got transferred to another hospital over in Dallas. I think Baylor. They had a floor there that was for COVID. And just went through the process. And next thing I know, they take me off the ventilator, and I get to start rehab and all that stuff. That was quite an experience.
Was it?
Oh yeah. You lay in bed for 3 months.
Nothing really happened during that time, anyways.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, it wasn't very. There wasn't
no
really
big deal.
No big deal. Nothing really happened.
But it was quite an experience. It was something that. The only good thing about it was I lost a lot of weight. But I've worked consciously on trying to gain it back. I've gotten it back and everything. But it was quite an experience.
And now you're playing golf.
Yep.
Back to playing golf.
Yep. That was
with my dad.
With your dad. Exactly right. We got a good group. Our class of 71 guys.
Yep.
So we have a good time. We try to play at least once a week.
Y'all need to come on and talk about all the glory days. It'd be kind of interesting to listen to you guys talk about that.
It would. We get together every now and then. We get together once a month on Monday nights. we get together over at the Candlelight Inn.
Yeah, and y'all solve the world's problems.
Exactly. and you hear some of the great stories, and some of them have been told over and over and over again. They get changed every time, but it's a great time.
I went in. That's what I got my dad for Christmas this year was a Candlelight Inn gift card.
Oh yeah,
because they all go. And so I walked in and I said, I'm buying a gift card. My dad comes in all the time, and she goes, he's not one of the guys that comes on Mondays, is he? And I said, yes, he is. So y'all are infamous over there.
Yeah, and when we get in there, I think the little waitresses fight for us. You know?
Yeah.
I want that table. I want that group and all that stuff. Damn, it's something.
Well, I'm glad you came in to talk to me. You've had such a career.
Well, it's been interesting.
It has been interesting.
God's been good to me. I've got a great family, and I had a 45-year career in athletics, and I've retired now and living the retired life of Paw, going to all see the grandkids play all their games and be in all their plays, and it's fun to be back home.
Do you watch any? Is there any teams that you watch? Like any college teams?
Well, I watch the Red Raiders.
Do you?
I watch Texas. I watch the Grand Prairie Gophers and the Red Raiders and the Dallas Cowboys.
You watch the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, I have to.
You have to? Why?
Yeah, because my daddy took me over to the Cotton Bowl in 1960 when they first started, and I was just a little guy, and I watched them get beat. But we sat in the end zone. We got general admission tickets. You could get a general admission ticket and a hot dog and a Coke for less than $5.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah, he took us over. So I became a Cowboy fan when they first started in 1960.
Are you like a diehard Cowboys fan?
No.
Like no matter what happens?
No, I'm like everybody else.
Really?
Yeah, I'm down on them right now.
It's a hard thing to watch. Yeah, it is.
It's really hard to see what they've gone through, and I'm going to be like everybody else, say they need a new general manager.
Well,
they need a general manager.
Do you go Friday nights to watch the Gophers play?
Oh yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. Look, usually what I do is whoever's playing at home. I go to the Gopher Bowl and I watch them. I have to watch South Grand Prairie play almost as much as the Gophers.
How are the teams looking this year?
I think both. I don't think they've changed their districts. They're still playing in the Arlington district. They got Arlington and Haltom in the district. I think both of them have a legitimate chance to make the playoffs.
Oh, that's good.
Both teams do. Grand Prairie goes in cycles. South Grand Prairie is pretty steady. But Grand Prairie, they'll go in about 3 or 4 year cycles. I had that. I noticed that when I was there, and even the last few years. We had a really good team at Grand Prairie in 21. And that Savion Red was the quarterback, and they won the bi-district championship and got to the second round.
Wow!
But then that class all graduated, so it was a new rebuilding year, and about 3 or 4 years later, you're going to have a pretty good run. So it's been 21, so this is 25, so it's about time.
Well, and one of the things that JB and I talked about was, he posts stuff all the time because he's in charge of the SGP Alumni Association, and he posted that the North-South games. I think it said South has won like every year for the last 20 years except for one time, something like that.
2 times.
2 times.
We beat them in 09. And then they beat them what?
So one time while you were there.
Yeah,
that's hard.
It's hard. Yeah, but we got to where we played pretty good games. They were pretty good ball games. Pretty close.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
It's a fun rivalry.
Yeah,
that is for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on and talking to me.
You bet.
I appreciate it.
I'm glad you invited me. I'm glad we finally got to do it.
I know. We had to reschedule twice.
Yeah.
Twice, but we did. So I'm glad. We even had to reschedule today to a later time, but we finally got it done.
That's right.
Well, good. Thank you so much, Coach Bartel.
You bet, Jenna. Thanks for having me.
Yes, my pleasure.
You bet.